Magical realism is awesome. If I were forced to read just one genre of literature for the rest of my life, I would have to ask a lot of questions to come up with an answer. I would have to consider what's the most, consistently compelling and engaging and interesting and just surprising in amazing ways. It would have to be a genre that has, boundless means of expression and infinite numbers of experiences that can be related. And if I made that decision today, I would choose magical realism. Arguably, the first instance of magical realism is Juan Rulfo's 1955 novel, Pedro Páramo. And I find it hard to say what I love about Pedro Páramo because I find it hard to say what Pedro Páramo is. It basically starts as the story of a boy whose mother's last dying wish is for him to go to this tiny town of Kamala and find his father, the titular Pedro Páramo. But once he gets to Kamala, it sort of stops being about him. He kind of stops existing. And there's all this weirdness that happens. And no, it doesn't really make a lot of sense when you say it, and it kind of doesn't make sense when you're reading it. But it does. It works very well, because you have to abandon a lot of things. There's a huge suspension of disbelief, but at the same time, it is this concrete world, and also not this concrete world. It's very weird, but it's a calculated kind of weird. In the same way that, Mexican painters like Orozco and Diego Rivera had to decide what Mexican painting was and how they wanted to be Mexican painters, Juan Rulfo had to decide what Mexican writing was going to be, what Latin American writing was going to be, how it could incorporate sort of the indigenous weird mysticism and also Catholic mysticism and old world ideas and means of expression. The key thing that magical realism does is it lays out this suspension of two different cultures. And when I say suspension, I mean just like in science. It's like oil and water. You know, you can mix it and you can mix it and you can mix it, but it's kinda gonna settle out. And that's the way with, Mexican culture. It's not a mixture, exactly. You hear it said that it's a mixture, but there's still, globs of explicitly indigenous ideas and explicitly European ideas. And they do coexist, but it's kind of a juxtaposition. But they do sort of mix together, and you get this third thing. It's kind of got these other things sort of floating in it. And certainly there are a lot of amazing examples of magical realism in Latin America. Probably the best and most well-known example is Gabriel Garcia Marquez, who wrote 100 Years of Solitude and a lot of other amazing works. But magical realism exists at the intersection of two opposing cultures from anywhere. One of the best recent examples is Life of Pi, which is Indian and North American. It's a novel that is very successful at what it does because it tells the story, like a very Indian story of this boy, not through the lens of Pi, but through the lens of this Canadian reporter who has come to see him and hear his story. So like I said, it doesn't have to be Latin American literature, it's just gotta be two cultures that don't exactly blend evenly. If I had to give 3 suggestions of what to read as far as magical realism, I would definitely go with Pedro Páramo. It's not only the oldest, it's an excellent example, and it helps you to understand how you understand magical realism without being able to articulate that understanding. Also, of course, Life of Pi is very good. If you've seen the film, you should still read the novel. They are different, and they are both very good. And the third example, which maybe isn't regarded as magical realism to a lot of people, is Zora Neale Hurston's novel, Moses, Man of the Mountain. It's kind of a mixture of southern black folklore coming from Africa, and also a European thing. All of the magical things that you hear in Bible stories take on a new, vibrance when you're reading them in Moses, Man of the Mountain. So yeah, I love magical realism a lot, and I love those 3 novels especially, and you should read those, and I will see you later.